Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining our Zoom conversation program. For those who don't know me, my name is Bar Reuven. I live in Tel Aviv. It's in the middle of the night now. I'm the co-founder of the 669 Cat Association. I was its CEO for the last 5 years, and today I serve as the Executive Vice President. Some of you might heard it already in our last conversations, but I will repeat shortly for new members. Unit 669 is one of 4 elite special units in the IDF. It's a unit that its people are risking their lives on a daily basis to rescue others. The unit is the combat search and rescue unit of the Israeli Air Force, and our job is to always be ready for call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, ready for the worst to happen. Today, Unit 669 is active and serves as the safety net of the Israeli and Jewish people and deal with civilian rescues and combat military rescues inside Israel and abroad. At the association, we're trying to do our best we can to keep up the good work of Tikkun Olam. The 669 Alumni Association was founded of the same principles and values of the unit itself, helping others, embracing social responsibility, and contributing to the public good in order to make the country and its people stronger. Our mission is to help empower the unit's veterans to maximize the human capital, positively impacting not only their own community, but also to the Israeli society overall. In our Zoom conversation program, we aim to bring you the most professional and interesting 669 alumni and educate you more about the importance in the civilian and after military work and encourage you to deepen your involvement and support with our organization. Today, we have a special speaker who plays an important role in our 669 alumni organization's work, and I'll let the interviewing leader to introduce him. Now we have the honor to introduce Emily Benedek, a big supporter of ours, author of 5 books, a journalist for 20 years, whose stories and essays have appeared in the New York Times, Newsweek, Rolling Stones, Washington Post, and on NPR. Thank you for doing this, Emily. Please, the screen is yours.
Thank you so much, Bar. And hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be participating in this webinar from New York City with friends of Unit 669, the Cat Association, a most worthy organization made up of some of the bravest and most dedicated soldiers and lifesavers in the world. Today, I'm very pleased to interview Dr. Aryeh Belldegrun, chairman of American Friends of Unit 669, and a former commander of the Medical Evacuation Unit before it was even called 669. He's a surgeon and a professor and chief of the Division of Urologic Oncology at the David Geffen School of Medicine at UCLA. Moreover, he's a cancer researcher and biotech entrepreneur, having founded several biotech firms and engineered as many highly successful exits. He speaks with us today about his work and about COVID-19, and he does so from a unique perspective. As he will tell us, he contracted COVID himself, recovered, and concluded that the work he's pioneered in cancer research, basically manipulating the body's immune system to fight cancer, might be useful in fighting COVID. So, Dr. Belldegrun, we're very interested in hearing your story and learning about the insights you've gained. First question I'd like to ask you, can you tell me a little bit about and tell us a little bit about what you've been up to lately?
Zoom in, zoom out. That's our life right now these days. But in the COVID world, I think life science, biotech, and pharmaceutical are getting a completely different aspect than done before. You realize how important it is, and we see it from investors to analysts to bankers to scientists. Well, this is our busiest time. I can tell you that we are founding this week our 4th company in life science within the COVID space. So it's very busy. The market for life science is as hot as possible. We are planning 4 IPOs from now in the next till election time, which is October. So I think all in all shows you what a change the COVID brought to the attention of the public. Not to forget that before COVID, every politician that wanted to become famous was bashing the pharmaceutical companies. Too expensive, not good, not doing that. So that was against the pharma. And the more the scream, the shouting, the better the acceptance of that participant was received. So there is no more discussion about the pharmaceutical not being a friend of the people or doing the best for the people. Because what I see now with over 100 companies working to find COVID, and they're working all together, yes, competing for sure, but at the same time, sharing information. And when you think how the world has changed, it took 4 weeks from the time we recognized COVID, the virus, till the day the sequence of the gene was completely ready. And we had a picture, a 3D picture of exactly what the virus is all about, so you can start attacking. We had a map. Without a map, you can't do anything. So this map was done in a record time. I would say 5 years ago, it will take me a year to do the same. 10 years ago, it was a lifetime. Okay? So today, 4 weeks, you have a mapping of the entire gene. You understand the SARS-CoV-2 RNA, a virus that has never been recognized before. You understand what's the envelope protein he has, how much membrane protein, what is the spike, where is areas to attack it. That is where science is. So that's what essentially keeps us busy today, pushing as much as we can, developing our portfolio companies to the front line.
Was the genome, was the mapping of the gene done by the Chinese? Did they send?
Yes, because they were the first one, but it's not really matter.
No,
in Singapore, they did it very quickly as well. And this is already today a routine that I don't think that's any rocket science. This is mechanics and techniques of genetic engineering, molecular biology, synthetic biology. That's what it's all about.
Right. We understand that you contracted COVID. Can you tell us anything about your perceptions about this virus first as a patient, and then as a physician? Anything about it occur to you and get you thinking in certain directions?
Yes, I was one of the first in the country to actually be infected with the virus. It looks like 20 years ago, but it was on March, in 2nd of March. I went to a medical conference in Boston. Nobody asked, should we go, not we go? We all go. There's a medical conference. We went to a medical conference.
Biogen, right? Biogen.
Yeah, presentations and everything, yes. And I came back 2 days later, started coughing. I had no idea. Nobody talked about anything, while the world was already consumed. And, there's no criticism, is right. But we in the United States didn't feel any. I traveled that week from New York to Boston to Chicago, back to LA, and I went back to New York, and a little bit cough, that's all. And then I came to Los Angeles, had some low-grade temperature, extreme fatigue, and then I said, okay, that's not the usual one, and I asked to test myself. They were very difficult. I'm a professor at UCLA. I asked to test myself. Nobody was ready to do that. Wow. They said, it's difficult, let's see, let's that. I said, guys, I have been in contact with many of the physicians that will be treating somebody here at UCLA. So I was tested, And they said, 5 days, you get the result. I said, what 5 days? PCR takes an hour, 2 hours. You should have the results. Cannot. That's how we are sending out with, and this is UCLA, one of the best hospitals. Okay? That was only in beginning of March.
Right.
So a lot has happened, and I think all in the good, all for good. We forget about everything else, but we are making a lot of progress.
So you didn't have it very badly. You were not. You was no lung involvement with you.
No, I was not. Yeah.
So we hear a lot from politicians about how this should be managed or how this should be not managed or how it's going to all go away. But it seems to me that the scientific community...
I'm on the station. Yeah, sorry.
It seems to me that the medical and scientific community are sort of taking charge and communicating with each other and lifting the discussion away from the politicians. Do you feel that that's true? Or do you really need to partner with the politicians?
Personally, I don't see two elements, I would say. Number one, in order to get more masks, more ventilators, more equipment, you clearly need to do it on a national level. But to find a solution to the vaccine and the treatment, I'm not sure that we really need anything other than let us do what we need to do. Having said that, the government has been helpful with some companies like Moderna that received almost $500 million to fast forward their project, which is very helpful. And that's a friend of mine, Tal Sachs, who is the head of the vaccine, is an Israeli guy that has done a terrific job at Moderna. So the companies are very involved and they know what to do. You know, Pfizer and Genentech and Gilead don't need government right now to do what they need to do in order to develop vaccine.
And how is it that Moderna would be the company that would get government help? Was the scientific community in accord about that, or did someone have a contact? I wondered, you know, there are a lot of Israeli companies who have been working on vaccines for coronaviruses and so forth for years who had original solutions. How was it that Moderna got this big boost?
I don't know. I'm not a politician. I'm a scientist, a physician, and I don't know how it is developed. Or I know a little bit, and I don't know, but different than how the government is done up to now. So this is the administration. That's what we have, and that's how the system works, at least here for now.
So you've made a great part of your reputation as a cancer researcher and a biotech entrepreneur. COVID is a virus. Cancer is a disease in which cells grow out of control. How could fighting one be similar to fighting the other?
I think it's quite similar. 5 years ago or 10 years ago, if you would say immunotherapy, the function of the immune system and the contribution of the immune system to human health and diseases, people will look and say, we know, okay, it's the body own defense mechanism. Today, immunotherapy is becoming a household name. I've been personally working on it for 30 years. I started working at Weizmann Institute of Science on immunotherapy when that was early on and very archaic and primitive. So everybody understands that the immune system is very important, not only in COVID, but in many, many diseases. Actually, in every specialty, there is now recognition of the immune system and how you can engineer the human immune system to fight disease. I've been involved in that for many years in cancer, specifically in cancer, although our most recent company is now nothing to do with cancer. It's engineering the human immune system to fight non-cancer diseases such as inflammatory bowel disease, autoimmune disease, HIV. So it's moving way beyond already the immune system function. What changed? Change is cloning the human genome, understanding the technology of genetic engineering, synthetic biology, and the fact that actually that is engineering. It's the little chips that are, we're reorganizing it, and that's what it works. So the same goes for a COVID virus that was discovered. It's a type of an RNA virus, similar to the MERS, SARS, seasonal flu, and it transmits to what we believe is a spike protein, although it's not clear completely if that's the only mechanism, but we know that much. So the human body immune system has B cells and T cells. The B cells are the humoral immune system, and the T cells are the cellular immune system. The humoral are making antibodies, and the T cells are making all kinds of cytokines that are involved in fighting viruses, fighting cancer, fighting other diseases. When patients get old and sick, their immune system is not so robust. Why? Because the T cells are not functioning as good. And old T cells is not working as a young T cell. That's there. But the T cell originally has to fight viruses, as other things, the viruses. So therefore, engineering the T cell to fight a virus, a specific virus, is something that today is not a rocket science. It's exactly the same. The same how you reject an organ, you reject a cancer, you reject a virus. And that's why most of what you see today is immunology fighting the COVID. The many attributes that happened with over the years brought us to understanding that this is a important avenue to fight. And therefore, even what you see in Moderna, they are doing something very new, immune RNA, but it's an RNA vaccine that will generate antibodies. Regeneron started a study by which they take and synthetically make the antibodies, make a package of different antibodies because they don't know which antibody will work, and they give it directly to the body. So it's a passing. You give just the antibodies rather than do the immune RNA. But there are two different groups. One is vaccine and one is treatment. And this is completely different. When you give antibodies, you treat. When you generate the immune system, you do it to a vaccine. In the world of vaccine, the average time for a vaccine, any vaccine in the world, is to produce it took about 10.7 years. It's one example of 4 years, okay, months. But regardless, here, so many companies coming together. So the hope they will do it much quicker. Now, will they be able to come within a year with a vaccine? Yes. Will that vaccine be it? That's it alone? Be able to vaccinate the entire world? Not sure. Nobody knows, and it's not clear at all that vaccine will be enough as a single agent. Also, I just saw an article a few days ago from a very good Chinese group that studied how long the antibodies last, even if you have a vaccine, and it looks very few months. It depends on the age, depends here and there, but it's not a 4 or 5 years. It's not even a year that we thought a few weeks ago. That study showed that it's months. And in some cases, somebody had a very good antibody response. 4 months later, he didn't have an antibody. So there are so many new cases, new questions right now that people we don't know. We believe that it will behave like the flu virus. Come summer, it goes away. We will all vacation, have fun. We'll come back prepared for September, October for the next round. I can tell you my impression, there will be no next round. It will be a continuation of what is now. The difference are, in my opinion, New York saw a huge spike, and therefore it went straight down. And that's the nature of these viruses. Los Angeles and other places saw a very slow, sharp rise and stabilization. That stabilization will move a little bit up, down, or that, but it will stay there as a chronic till we find a solution. So this is what we're learning on almost a daily basis. We did not know all of that information, and all the stories that you heard 2 months ago are more or less history.
Now, those graphs of the numbers of cases, it seems to me that the graph in New York went up and came down because of measures that were taken by the state government to isolate people and so forth. Or are you suggesting that that is the nature of the disease itself?
In LA, we did exactly the same measures, okay? We did exactly the same, and it behaved completely different. So I'm not sure that that's the real reason that this is happening. Let's see. When the government said the next 2 weeks will be critical, for sure, because of all the demonstration and all of the celebration outside that went out. It takes a week to 2 weeks, and we will know what's really happening. It's already changing, and you can see the effect. So we will know more, and then you can say whether this is social distancing, how much it works. In general, social distancing is not a bad thing. It's good. Masks are good. It's, if anything, they're helping. But is this the solution, the long-term solution? Absolutely not.
Right.
So we need to be prepared.
Go ahead. Keep going.
No, we have to be prepared accordingly.
So we are all very used to viruses. We get them every year. We get flu, unless we get a flu shot. We get colds every single year. So I'm sure that I've built up a lot of immunity to colds, but I still get colds, right? Viruses are very difficult to stop or to find vaccines for. Does that have to do with the fact that they mutate? Or is it something?
That's a good question. SARS-CoV-2 is an RNA virus, similar to the flu and similar to the measles, that is more prone to mutate than DNA viruses.
Right.
Having said that, the SARS-CoV-2 mutation rate is 8 to 10 times lower than SARS-CoV-1, like its partner, 2 times lower than seasonal flu. So that, and that low mutation rate suggests higher possibility to develop an effective vaccine. But again, these are all suggestions, and we are learning a lot of new things that we didn't know before. So the mutation rate, whether it will be one vaccine or a cocktail of vaccines, if I have to bet, it's a cocktail of vaccines. It's not a one vaccine that will do the job, okay? But you need to test it. The fact that you have it, you need to test one at a time, and then combination. And then to think that, like our president says, by year end, everything is solved, forget it. That will take at least a year, if not more, to feel comfortable and come back to normal.
Well, is there any comparison to be made to the HIV virus, which after, 25 years, we still don't have a vaccine for, but we use, as you said, a cocktail to reduce the viral load?
Look, I'm very close to that because the developer of remdesivir, the guy who developed remdesivir at Gilead, and he was also the one who developed the HIV vaccine, and also the hepatitis vaccine at Gilead. This is now, he came, it was a $5 million company. Today it's 100 billion. He's now a CEO of one of our portfolio company. So I work with him quite a lot and discuss. He was really a believer that remdesivir is a good treatment for patients with advanced disease. In the beginning, the virus goes into the body and start replicating. So therefore, to treat early disease is different mechanism of action than to treat late disease. In the beginning, it's a virus comes, makes a hole, finds a receptor, goes in, replicates, and goes out. That's it. The RNA polymerase, it works, and then it makes it a million times. But that's one way of stopping a vaccine with antibodies, a cocktail of antibodies.
Right.
Once these viruses are in circulation, in the lung, in other areas, the body is now pulling its entire T-cell repertoire to fight that virus. And when they cannot do it because the viral load, and that's how the question is, how much is your viral load? If the viral load is very high, the body will start producing a lot of proteins called cytokines.
Right.
And they know how to create war. They do the inflammatory response, but when you flood the system with all of these cytokines, which are an attempt to stop the virus, what you get is cytokine storm. And this cytokine storm is what kills you.
Right.
So you're not dying from the virus. You are dying from the cytokine storm. It's flooding. You are drowning in your own fluid that the body produced. Remdesivir works in that late stages. And there is also studies which are now under work with a drug called interleukin 6 inhibitor, IL-6. Some were less encouraging than others. The question is, at what time do you give? Because it's a process, it's an active process. The earlier you intervene, the better it is, but then it proliferates and it's very hard to stop. So remdesivir really works well in later stages of the disease. By that time, the immune system works. You have to control the immune system. In the beginning, the immune system is less important. There is other techniques to stop the virus from coming in. So this is why the complexity and thinking that that there will be one drug fit all, it's not going to happen.
You know, earlier you said that sometimes the older patients are the ones who are overcome more easily by COVID because their T cells are not strong. But
no, the other way around. The older
people,
their immune system is tired. Their T cells are less active and less capable. Less, not more.
Right.
Because the immune system goes down. That's why you have more cancer.
Then how is it that they then suffer from the cytokine storm? If their immune system is not suppressed but inactive, why are they susceptible to the cytokine storm, which is an overstimulation? Is it just deregulation? Deregulation?
Good question, because they still have an immune system. And all people, when they get the infection, they still recover. So the immune system is not going none. It's just getting tired, okay? And that's what it is. It's function. How many cells can a T cell kill per invader? If they equal to 100, they can do it 2. And that's what it is. And the virus doesn't stop. So it moves, and it moves very fast. And therefore, And we're learning, we're learning about the ventilators, and you heard it again, because the pneumonia of this virus has never been seen before. This is a different,
Right.
and therefore you need to treat it differently. We treated it exactly as we treat everything else. I think that this will make a big difference in the mortality. The mortality will go down significantly because we learn how to deal with the enemy, how to prevent, how to step by step. So while the number of patients go up, I believe mortality will come down because we learn when to treat, when not to treat. And it's, we know that many patients were put on ventilators, never came out of this ventilator because we treated them as if they have something else that we know. We didn't know that, so now we're starting to learn about it.
Well, when you take this deep dive into the immune system, specifically with these patients, it seems to me that if you're talking about, immune systems that are getting older, less effective, but then are still able to be stimulated into high gear, that you're probably getting close to the real essence of aging. Like, what is it that makes an immune system age? Maybe you'll find the mechanisms, the real mechanisms that turn it on, turn it off in certain circumstances. I don't know. It seems that's a fundamental issue about aging, isn't it?
Yeah, but we have good answer. In the laboratory, what we are doing, we're taking an old T cell, we engineering it, we feed it with other cytokines, we put in different genes, and it becomes a younger one. So I think that's, oh yeah. So you can overcome engineering the immune system. If you think what we did at Kite Pharma is a company in immunotherapy that we have worked on the market product. What we took is, we took blood or plasma from patients who had chemotherapy, bone marrow transplant, end of life cases, which had about 2 months to live, 2, 3, 4 months to live max. After all of that, we took their blood, we brought it in our lab to the laboratory, we engineered it, we invigorated them, and 2 weeks later, they received back their own cells, new cells, which are now also have a GPS that knows how to direct it only to cancer cells and not to normal, attack only cancer cells. And 80% of them stay alive. This has never been seen before. Today, over half of the patients are alive 5 years later. This is how FDA approved it in a record time. So it shows you take very sick patients, you take their T cells, you engineer it, and they can fight their own cancer in a way that no drug from the outside can treat, because everything failed, and your immune system can do it. So that's kind of the holy grail of engineering the human immune system.
I read about that. It's fantastic, but that technique, it seems to me, is not scalable for a disease like COVID. It takes 17 days to engineer the immune system and inject it back in. Here, you need to be able to get 380 million, 500 million doses, in a short amount of time, just for us here, and then the rest of the world. So you came up with another way as well, not taking the immune system of a specific person, but by taking the immune system of a healthy person and trying to extract what you need from that and engineer it and inject that back in. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I see you did good homework. It's 17 days. 17 days is what we did, but we were the fastest. And even for us, as opposed to Novartis that takes 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and others, this was the shortest return of cells to the patient. But even then, 10% of the patient couldn't get their cells because within these 17 days, they deteriorated to a position that they either died or were not in a position to receive any treatment anymore. We put on hospice. So you can see every day counts. So that, so this is a major factor. Now, but you're right that you have to take the patient's cells and you need to engineer it and you need to give it back. How many patients you can do it? And in the United States, it costs today $350,000 a patient. Okay? So what we did now, we have a new company called Allergy. And what Allergy is doing, trying to solve some of that problems by doing gene editing. This is new technology that was not available when I started Kite. Today, you can edit the genes. So we take and we edit the genes that make the difference between me and you. We said, let's create a universal donor. So we cut the genes. We know exactly which genes are the rejection genes. We cut them out and create a universal donor. And then we put in a GPS, the same GPS that I put before, but that blood that we do for the engineering comes from young, healthy volunteers. So it doesn't come from these old patients that received chemotherapy. So we take a whole healthy volunteer, we take his blood, we engineer it, we put all the genes in, and we put it in the freezer. So now from every patient, from every healthy volunteer, today with the technology, it's very new, I can do 100 treatments. So one patient gives to 100. And it's in the freezer. You don't have to wait 17 days or 20 or 50 days. The minute the patient comes in, you take from the freezer, you thaw it, you give it, you treat. So that's next generation. This treatment has never been experimented before. We just presented a few weeks ago, the first time ever encouraging data in patients. And we hope to go to the FDA for approval for this drug. But again, is this scalable for 300 million? No. This is for specific cancers. So step by step, we cannot do, the changes happen so quickly. And medicine doesn't adjust so quickly. The hospital had to adjust. Everything is adjusting very quickly in months, what it usually would take years.
I know that people who are attending have questions. I have two more for you, and then we'll open it up for questions outside. You did mention a little bit autoimmune diseases. I know that there's some that are like 19th century diseases that we haven't really progressed that far since they were identified, like multiple sclerosis, lupus. Your technique of engineering the immune system, have you made any, or do you have any hopes of making progress with those kind of diseases, or is it still too complicated? You don't know what the signal is that it gets the immune system to go wrong and attack itself, or do you?
This is exactly the diseases that we are attacking now with engineering T cells. We don't go where there are solutions. We go where there are no solutions and there are challenges. So that's what we are doing. Treating autoimmune disease is exactly the opposite of treating cancer. In cancer, the immune system is not working enough, strong enough, so cancer can grow. So you need to stimulate the immune system. In autoimmune disease, it's reverse. The immune system looks at one of your organs in the body and says, you are not mine, and I'll reject you. So what you need to do is you need to suppress it. So the engineering of the immune system is exactly in the other way. Just suppress rather than stimulate. So this is all exactly what we are doing, but it's all very specific. It's not, again, one size fits all. This is something that you need for every disease. You will have its own target and on GPS. You now go to X and you know exactly where to go. You cannot do it for every patient. So it's scalable, yes, but it's not for hundreds of millions of people.
So last question. It seems that Well, I have many questions, but I'm going to let other people ask questions. I kind of wondered if you had some thought yourself about, was there something in your training? Was there something about your being an oncologist and looking at cancers that are specific, urologist and looking at cancers that were specific to urology that got you thinking about the immune system, or was that just the thing that was happening at the time? And what do you think has propelled you? And I think back to Unit 669 and the guys that I know in 669, and it occurs to me that one common theme about soldiers in 669 is like, there's no task that's too hard, and there's no day that doesn't have any more time in it that you can't use to do the next thing. I just wondered, has that been what's been more influential, or do you know what's been more influential in the fact of the specific successes that you have in looking at the immune system?
You know, it's an interesting question, but when I was at 669 and I was the head of the unit of the medical evacuation for the Israeli Air Force, we were located about 20 minutes away from the Weizmann Institute. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly when I started working in the laboratory at the Weizmann on immunology and immunotherapy. At that time, it was really primitive, but the concept was already the same concept. It's only later on when I moved to Harvard that I started working on it and eventually moved to the National Cancer Institute, NIH, Rosenberg, where we had better tools, better finances, and we moved the immunotherapy to the next level. But even then, there were other excitements in the science and in medicine. I would say it's only in the last 5-7 years or so that suddenly some drugs that using the immune system were shown so promising, and now it's a tens of billions of dollar industry, and every single company wants immunotherapy. So yes, the roots of my interest in immunology and immunotherapy has been, I started actually at the Weizmann. Now, I trained as a surgeon, and initially, the whole idea at Harvard was, when in doubt, cut it out, at least do it well. We know how to operate very well, and we will do the job.
Yeah.
After a while, when you get a little bit of more gray hair, you understand that there is a limit to your knife. You know, the knife is good. You know, you don't need to cut just because you know to do it very, very well. There are other ways that you need to develop, either in combination or in preparation for surgery, chemotherapy, because it used to be chemo, radiation, and surgery. These were the three modalities for 50 years of treating.
Right.
Now, everybody recognizes that it's immunotherapy and then surgery and then radiation. And if it doesn't work, go for chemotherapy, because we don't want chemo. So that's how it is. So it's evolving. And then I decided, you know, rather than treat one patient at a time, maybe we can change and develop a drug that will treat thousands and hundreds of thousands of people all over the world. And so it's, you know, it's the combination of science, medicine, and immunology, and interest in immunology that brought us to where we are now.
So I'm going to ask the attendees now, if you have a question, please write it down in the chat. And I think that I should be able to see it, and I can forward your question. And while they're thinking about questions, I wanted to ask you, I've read that people with certain blood types, like A blood type, tend to get COVID worse. How do you explain, do you understand the virus well enough to understand why that would be?
No, I don't think that I'm sure that it's correct. I read it. I don't know. I've not seen the scientific publication on that. And if there was one scientific, it's it's not common. It's not common practice to check your blood type and know what it is. I don't think that it might be something, but not significant.
Now, you didn't talk. Let's say I don't have any questions yet. You didn't tell me. You told me about some fantastic progress in treating cancer with people with engineered immune system, but it's only so new. You don't have any idea over the long term how will the immune system respond to the changes. Are there any? Does it make the body more susceptible to other illnesses? I mean, this is a long-term project. And it seems to me also finding a vaccine for COVID is a long-term project. And when people say, "Oh, it's just a matter of a few months," or da, 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 it seems to me like this is not helpful to think that way.
Let me just start in saying yes. I think that it's a long-term project. I do agree, and I think that it will take quite some time to find out how best to develop that vaccine.
And what would you say to? Oh, here we have a question. Are smokers less susceptible to COVID? Less susceptible?
No.
No.
You know, your lungs are affected. And if anything else, I would think that it's worse because your lung capacity and overcompensation capacity is much worse. I don't know where is this. It's not. Absolutely not.
Right. If you were the president,
I didn't answer your question. You asked the first question. You asked. Just repeat it. You asked me something.
You mean about? Well, it's sort of. I just feel like I think that the world needs to be prepared for COVID. Is psychologically prepared for COVID. I think it's going to be a long haul. I mean, we're going to have to deal with not being able to go to restaurants, not being able to be in close proximity, not being able to go to synagogue with other people for quite a while. And if we think that a solution is right around the corner, I don't know if we're going to have it in us, you know, the emotional and the strength to keep going. I think we need someone to tell us, you're going to have to get used to this. You're going to have to get used to a new way of living and find coping mechanisms. But I don't know. I don't think anyone's doing that.
I think you have to get used to that. It's not, you know, because it's a balance between the economy, how much can you keep people in house, and inability to work and be productive versus be sick. But you'll have to adjust, and it will be a slow process either way.
So someone asked along this line, since a vaccine is a very long-term project, what do you think is the best way to avoid large-scale deaths? You have to go back to work. The economy of the world can't stop, or we're all starved.
Yeah, it's not a medical question.
Okay, right. Not a medical question. Another question, why are the Black, Asian, and minorities susceptible to COVID-19? I guess the person means at a higher rate. I don't know if that's true.
I don't know if genetic, but it might be socioeconomic. Access to the best care, because we know that that the care for sick patients in COVID is complicated. You need the best physician, you need the best doctors, you need to get there early enough. So I'm not sure that this is something genetic. I think that it's kind of something more related to access to the best care.
Yeah. Someone else asked, how effective are masks in protecting yourself versus others?
I think that obviously with masks you are protecting others from any issue. I think for now it's such a simple solution that it's not all inclusive, but at least it's the best we can get at the present time.
And why are the infection rates going up so quickly in Israel? Is it because
They're also
people
going up. They're going up in California. They're going up in Atlanta and in Texas and Florida because, look, as people said many times, the viruses do not have legs. They are being transmitted from patient to patient. So it is, it's part of, a social distancing. With all what happened recently was less social distancing, and it's enough for a small group to be infected and to infect the entire country.
one more question. Where do you think we will, this will be our last question, and then I'll hand it back to Bar for a final comment. Where do you think we will be at a year from now?
We'll be much smarter, knowing much more about COVID. We'll know exactly what it is. There will be a lot of papers and articles written about it. And I think that we will start having grab a handle on how this is going to be controlled. Definitely in a year from now, we'll be in a very good position because the best brains in the world are working on it right now. They have a self-interest to make it happen. The technologies out of 100 companies, at least 100 different ways of controlling, something good will come out of it. So I think that within the next 6 months, we will we will have some at hand to test. We already have some few avenues to test now, but at 6 months, we'll know what it is. We will find out whether we need combination of several of these agents, and in the year we'll be in good shape.
Now, did you say that Allogene, are you working on this problem specifically or no?
No, we are focused on what we know to do best. We are focused on cancer. There are other companies that have been in the vaccine and in the HIV and the viruses. They are much better equipped than us to do it. So we are on kind of continue to do what we have to, not to forget that patients are continuing to die from cancer. They continue to die from inflammatory disease, that dying from pneumonia unrelated to COVID. So we cannot stop what we are doing right now. It's just an additional problem, but not instead of anything that's happening.
Well, I thank you. This has been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure for me to hear you talk, and I'm very interested in learning more about what you do. And I'll keep an eye on you and kick it back to Bar.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I just want to say a last word. So thank you very much, Ari, for doing this and doing everything for a better world. And Emily, thank you as well. I send you in the chat some links for our Facebook page, Instagram page, and website. So feel free to contact us and learn more about our activities. That's it. We appreciate that you join us, and have a good evening. Thank you all. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.